Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm joined once again for the final time for this campaign by Voltgloss. How's it going?
Going well, going well.
Well, we thought we'd do, as usually happens on these campaigns and my channel over in Playing Board Games as well, do a little retrospective, a recap, if you will, of our decks, what worked, what didn't work, what we learned, what we were surprised by, what we might do differently in the future. And this was Dark Matter, the custom campaign, the fan created campaign by Axolotl. So there's something to talk about there too. You're seeing our decks all on the screen right now with lots of organization built in. We'll talk about kind of some groupings of cards and what we were thinking. But just in case you want to see it all as well, I'm just going to quickly show the decks on screen right now. So you can see this is the Akachi deck that you played.
Mm.
And I'm going to quickly then show the Monterey Jack deck here. And as you can see from mine, I have 58 XP in here because there was a lot of ways of getting some extra XP. You ended up, it looks like, with 56.
Yep.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of XP.
As
So one thing we'll talk about is what is it like to have a campaign where you get to put every bell and whistle you'd like to put in, and if there are any limitations there that you found, or made it was really nice to just have lots of things you could put your XP into. But I thought we start with yours, Volt, because it was built around a few interactions, and I'd like you to tell us how that went, what you thought about that, and just go ahead and start wherever you'd like. I guess maybe just reminding everyone what Akachi's ability is here.
Sure, absolutely. So I played Akachi Angel, the shaman, with a stat line 5233 as an effort to be complementary to Monterey Jack's 1425.
Hmm.
6 health, 8 sanity, and her special ability is all around charges. Any asset with uses charges comes in with an extra charge on them, and her Elder Sign, which we saw quite a lot of during
Hmm.
the campaign, is a good one, just pure value. Add a charge to one of your assets with uses charges. And her deck building is all mystic cards, all neutral cards, anything with uses charges level 0 to 4, and occult cards level 0. So that uses charges level 0 to far allows for some interesting off-class takes, a couple of which I did pick here. Um, but in building this deck, the number one card that I was most interested to really see in play is Spectral Shield. So the new Drown City level 0 card that you attach to a player card with health and or sanity at your location can be an ally, can be another card with health or sanity, can be an investigator, which is what we were primarily using them for, which allows you, indeed requires you, to cancel one damage or horror by spending a charge from an asset that the Spectral Shield's owner controls whenever damage or horror is incoming to that asset. So these were, I still have yet to sit down and do all the math of how much damage and horror these absorbed over the course of the campaign, but
A lot.
it was a lot. Now, as we've discussed, some of that was damage and horror that could have been mitigated via other ways, as we'll see when we get to your deck.
Hmm.
But the freeing nature that Spectral Shield, coupled with assets that have a large number of charges, boosted by Akachi just adding charges to them when they are played, when they are replayed with some of the cards that I used,
Hmm.
and also that naturally grow charges over time from other cards that we'll see in the deck. It all worked very well. I was very happy with how this synergy was realized. Um, the obviously the key cards for that are the spell assets. I was primary fighter, so I had my Azure Flames that I leveled up to level 3. I had my Brand of Cthulhu's, which had come in with tons of charges, and I also had my Eyes of the Dreamer, which stayed in all the way through from level 0. It was my couple of investigate tech cards while also being a battery for the spectral shields, and they worked very well. And even without other support, I could still reasonably investigate with these when needed. And it was a couple of times needed. This is very much a, I don't know if 80-20, like 85-15
Hmm.
maybe enemy management investigate support deck, but that 15, that was meaningful.
So just
Um,
to sort of make this clear, you don't need to spend charges off of Eyes of the
mhm,
Dreamer to investigate. So it's really that you had 10 charges here that you sometimes use them to prevent the autofail or
yep,
maybe try to proc this ability, but really this was 10 times that you could cancel damage or horror,
absolutely.
which
And with both,
is weird to me. After having seen this in action, I'm like, okay, this is the intention, I assume, because they came out in the same box. But it was
absolutely.
amazing to me how often we just said, sure, you will just cancel the horror or damage from other sources. And
Hmm.
it didn't really even, we didn't even think about it. It was just like, yeah, we'll do it. Oh, yeah, here's the original other card that was in
Yes.
your deck that you did get rid of.
Yep.
But it, a lot of times you were just saying, I will replay another one of these, like with a Uncage the Soul or with
Hmm.
your Spirit Speaker, and
Yep.
I don't know. I was
That,
sitting over here saying, "Well, maybe you're gonna run out of charges," and the answer was,
oh,
"Ha ha ha."
there was literally no point during the campaign when I ran out of charges. Even when I was running low of charges, I had more in my hand. Now, that's also part of deck building. We talked about when the campaign began. We started right after your video with Justin
Mhm.
on uh, assets, events, skills, balancing, and deck building. And for Akachi, at least the way I build Akachi, heavy on the assets. She's all around assets that are run on charges that are using charges. And with what I was doing, that was even more important. So this whole way through, I've had 8 spell assets. These like I think I added the Brand of Cthulhu level ones. I guess maybe I only had 6 at the start. Let me take a look at my history. Actually, what did I have in level 0? Oh, I had the Enchanted Blades
Hmm.
just as another thing with charges. But the very first upgrade I did was to set them on fire and turn them into spells, um, which works much better with all of the spell focused tech that was in the rest of the deck. Um, the only upgrade here that I wound up not needing was converting the Breath of the Sleeper into these earthly serenities, which we did late game, because for the not unreasonable concern that I was rocking 4 mental trauma, which is half of my total sanity, for
Mhm.
most of the campaign, and having something else that could heal that if needed would be a good thing. I used it once,
Yeah.
total of once. These could have stayed Breath of the Sleeper just as a charge battery. I don't think I fought with Breath of the Sleeper past scenario 1.
Right.
Um, I was very underwhelmed with Breath of the Sleeper's fight effect, but I don't think this was the deck for that aspect to shine. That's not why this was in the deck.
So
You really, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
back to Spectral Shield. So I believe this question where Earthly Serenity came up was because there was only one scenario in which these cards, Spectral Shield, didn't really show.
Yep,
And we thought, well, it's possible that could happen again. But
yep.
that was not actually a concern later on. So, yeah, the Arcane Initiates, I think, just they didn't find the Spectral Shield that one scenario, and then it was totally fine afterwards. And it was a shorter scenario, I believe, too. So, may just a
Actually,
bit.
for that one, I found the second one, but then it got discarded from my hand.
Oh, that's
Or,
right. It was the card that ate your cards in hand. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
yeah, which was a misplay by me. I should have played it on myself as soon as I got it.
Hmm.
So that's on me sometimes. But yes, the arcane initiates were in the deck from the very beginning. They had so many spell cards to fetch, not just all of these assets plus the spectral shields, but also the utility cards that we'll get to. Um, we talk about where could I put in some additional experience. I mean, honestly, probably the 4 points each I spent on Earthly Serenity, they would have been better spent
Hmm.
bringing the Arcane Initiates to level 3. I mean, it's a gravy upgrade, but that would have been that would have worked. These did good work right up until they mutated into a motorcycle. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
Um, because there are a couple of other charge cards I want to talk about. Bangle of Jinxes, Red Clock. These, of course, are in the deck thanks to Akachi's. She can use anything that uses charges level 0 to 4 access. Um, Bangle of Jinxes did not realize its full potential, but that's something I am intrigued to try still. Um, like the dream there is to have Bangle of Jinxes in play and an enemy on you, engage with you, that just does 1 damage or horror, and you have a spectral shield on, and then you can literally just ignore that enemy forever. Because whenever it's hitting you, it gets canceled by a charge, and then Bangle of Jinxes gets a charge. Never, you never need to care about it again. And in a world where I spent XP on Relic Hunter, which I had been thinking about but decided against because my experience was better spent elsewhere. But with Relic Hunter and 2 Bangles of Jinxes, that could be infinite charge generation on a ludicrous scale. Now, how useful is that? I think that's also campaign dependent. By the time I had enough XP to potentially do that, we weren't seeing much in the way of enemies that only did 1 damage or horror.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, I think where I would be tempted to try that is if my random basic weakness was an enemy that did 1 damage or horror without a side effect like also put a doom on the agenda.
Hey, the game has to bite back a little bit, right?
It does, yes. And this acolyte got 1 shot, got 1 doom on the agenda, so it did its job. But the red clock, this got 1 scenario to shine. It got into the deck late, which I don't mind. Like, could I have gone for this earlier? Sure. But as primary fighter, I still think it was more important to first get my fighting assets leveled up and up to snuff. The Brand of Cthulhu's up to level 4, the Azure Flames up to level 3, and
Mm-hmm.
then the glue in the skill cards, which we'll get to in a moment. But once all that was done, then I guess you could say, capstone of the deck was putting in the red clock. And then the next to last scenario where this was online, with Spectral Shield, with Akachi's ability, it comes into play with a charge. So already you're getting up to 2 charges on the turn after you put it into play.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets up to 3 and you're getting an extra action. And then from then on, I just spent a charge from it every turn via Spectral Shield. And I had an extra action for the rest of this scenario.
And we got to
And
cancel the damage and horror,
and
right?
and we canceled damage and horror for as the quote unquote cost for
Yep.
doing that, which was fantastic. 10 out of 10 would run again. Um, would this be even more bonkers with the Red Clock 5? Sure. Um, I haven't thought about whose deck building would enable this sort of nonsense with Rogue 5 access.
Well, Safina, I
Um,
suppose, right?
Safina, yup, sure. Is there anyone else? Can't think of
Not.
anyone else.
I mean, Susie or something like that. You could wrangle.
I guess technically Jenny.
Technically, Jenny. Yeah.
I don't know if that would be worth using all her splash, but it might be funny to try once. But yeah, this was the whole charge package,
Plus
boosted
these
then,
guys.
yes, by the glue. So Ghastly Possession. I never used the top ability. I wasn't playing with Doom, but I was committing this to a test on one of these spells, and then adding, 2 charges to Azure Flame, 4 charges to Brandon Cthulhu, 4 charges to Eyes of the Dreamer. Tremendous value. And it's a spell, so Arcane Initiate can find it, which she did on
Mm-hmm.
multiple occasions. Enraptured, this I think I exclusively committed to your Investigates, which is why I took it, to help you get clues, and then for me to benefit with, again, 3 extra charges on something, which was excellent. And then the leveling up the Fearlesses, this was my horror healing, and frankly, it wound up being all I really needed. And the Guts level 2, I was very glad that I went for these, less fancy upgrades, but these were the extra piece I needed on top of everything else to comfortably draw into the key cards that I needed to be functional
Mm-hmm.
through each scenario. What else? We had the Uncage the Souls level 3. I said after I put the first one in that I really should have had Uncaged the Soul level 0 in the deck from the start, which I really should have. The level 3 was fantastic, especially for being able to uh, well, have my Spirit Speaker effect all in one card in one action, discard the Brennan Cthulhu that I just finished using, and replay it with a whole new set of 9, or rather with Akachi 10 charges.
Hmm.
And I don't need to tell you that the tricolor, not permanence, the tricolor talents, prophetic here is just very freeing. Like, this was the one thing that is not in this deck is anything to boost my stats,
Right.
and I did not need it. With Akachi's base 5 willpower, the built-in +2s on my main fighting assets, Brandon Cthulhu and Azure Flame, and then for the last few scenarios of the campaign, being able to spend prophetic bucks when I need to get up to 8 or 9, or committing the skill cards to get up to 8 or 9, that was all I needed. Now, again, this is dark matter. Before we started playing it, I understood it to be an on the easier side campaign. So, would this work for a tougher campaign? I don't know. I feel like it would. I'd be interested to run it again.
I don't know about getting the
Uh,
XP necessary, but I think it would work. I think if you're playing the Forgotten Age or something like that, that does hand out
mhm.
XP on the same scale, I think you can get there. But to me, like 5, 6, 7, +3 is 10. That's good enough.
Yeah, the deck was functional all the way through. Um, like Red Clock was gravy. It was great to have, but did I need it? No. It came out and play in one of 8 scenarios. And it was great there, but I didn't need it in any of the others. Um, yeah, I have always enjoyed having value skill cards in my deck. I know you have opinions about putting in level 1 cards when you could be spending experience on higher level cards. Um, I was perfectly happy with my level 1 to skill package here as the glue to keep these things going.
I mean, Ghastly Possession it does something unique, right? In
Yes.
in this deck especially, right? It's
Yep.
better, in fact, than Enraptured in some sense, because you have so many uses on these cards. I don't think that they're bad. I find that I mean, you've got plenty of XP that's in other cards. This is just a nice
Mhm.
extra piece. I have level 1 cards in my deck too. I'm not against the principle.
That is true. What else? Summon Servitor. I talked about the arcane initiates becoming taxi cabs, and this was the purpose. Oh, I should, I guess, get
The sheet.
well, come on. Whoa, I'm throwing it across the table. I took Summon Servitor from the beginning, and I spent my In the Thick of It XP on these 3 points to let me ride it with Wings of Night, and for it to not take up an arcane slot so that I could be free to use my spells, and never looked back. This was all its purpose was. It was a backwards pathfinder,
Yeah.
and it worked great.
I'm
Um,
actually surprised you
and
didn't
again,
ever put any more XP into it, given how much XP we had to play around with. Did you ever give it
I
a consideration?
not really. I looked at this a couple times, and I thought the extra things that it can do here, like even Dreaming Call, that instead of discarding an asset, you can return it to hand.
Hmm.
I was mainly turning an arcane initiate into this.
Right.
And unless I was going to spend experience on charisma, which I thought about, but the value wasn't there. The value was in other cards. Um, I didn't need any of these other upgrades. This had one purpose, which is to help me move around, like from the midpoint of a scenario onward, after someone who really likes to move around has opened up the map.
Right.
And boy howdy, that's exactly what it did.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people say that the servitor is not as interesting when I mean, like, oh, what do you put into your off-class mystic? Well, you only get to mark 4 boxes. You didn't even mark
Yeah.
4. You marked 3, and you could have marked more and get lots of value. I think you're right that there's nothing else in the deck that gives you specifically a move action,
Yes,
and
correct.
that's all
Well,
you
I guess
needed
the
it
red
for.
clock level
Sure.
2 version specifically, but that's very that's very special use case,
Right, right.
which again happens once. But no, this worked very well, and this is like you said, anyone with Mystic 2 access can do this. You do need a teammate who has opened the way for you, but once that has happened, it's very freeing to be able to take that movement. And I don't think this came up, or maybe it happened once and I didn't even think about it. But if you have an enemy engaged with you and the servitor is with you, you can use this ability to move without triggering an attack of opportunity because it's the servitor taking an
Hmm.
action,
Hmm.
not you. So that's again, reverse pathfinder sort of niche use case. And the last few cards, I took Sign Magic 3 at the very, I think after scenario 1 or 2. It came out a couple of times. I didn't mind it when I saw it, but this I could have done without. Um, it was the theory was right to have a fighting asset, fighting spell asset, the Eyes of the Dreamer investigating, and like the Breath of the Sleeper as a battery, something else,
Hmm.
and have all three in play. It turns out I didn't need the third card for a battery. And the double action, like it happened a couple times, but I don't think there was ever a case where I needed to like Breath of the Sleeper and at not Breath of the Sleeper, Brand of Cthulhu and Azure Flame to be slamming 5 damage at something. I did combine it with an Eyes of the Dreamer Investigate a couple of times. It's not a bad card, but it was less vital to take as an early upgrade. If I did this sort of deck again, I would make that a gravy back half of the campaign upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes some sense with the Earthly Serenity as well, but the I think we didn't need it, right? We were
Yeah.
doing just fine in the scenario that a like 5 damage attack, like you said, or a heal, that wasn't the difference between us winning or losing.
Yep. Yep. 100%. I guess if instead of Earthly Serenity, maybe I had a more important auxiliary spell um that I needed for some other thing that I was trying to do based on my role in the team.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. If I needed something for struggling to think what it would be, like maybe scrying. Like if I were doing this sort of deck with Gloria Goldberg,
Hmm.
maybe. I mean, Scrying 3 is a free triggered ability. You're not sign magicking for that, but just having the third arcane slot, maybe.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I could see it. I could see trying it.
I think a
But
chemical transmutation would be okay there. Get you some extra resources for your trouble.
I should try that. I have never been impressed by alchemical transmutation. I, I mean, Uncaged the Soul
Yeah, it's doing the same thing,
did what
really.
I needed. Yeah, prophetic for the extra prophetic bucks. Even Voice of Ra, which I had two of from the beginning, and I went down to one because I was running out of level 0 cards to drop.
Yeah,
Um, but even this was fine. Um, yeah, I don't know. In a world where Akachi needed more assets with more charges on them, maybe, but that's no longer the case. We have eyes, we have breath. Like the charges are there; they're just waiting to be played at level 0,
right,
even.
right. That's what's so crazy about these. Anything to say about the last two cards here? Ward two, you have one
Um,
copy.
I think having one copy of a card that handles a unique problem case
Hmm.
is helpful. That's why I kept one Ward of Protection 2, but was fine dropping the other. If one of us drew a very bad encounter card, this was in my deck that could have dealt with it. Same with keeping one Promise of Power. This did matter. I mean, in the last scenario,
Hmm.
I got one of the story assets that required a book test, which I had to take. And I remember when I pulled that, um, you know, I heard in your voice the reaction of, huh, don't know if that's going to happen. But I had this in my hand. And so, yeah, I was able to pass one book test the entire
Yay!
scenario. That was the book test I needed for.
Yep,
So there we go.
nice to have it in your back pocket. And you seem to
Absolutely.
have drawn enough cards that it wasn't like you did see these things. It wasn't like you ever had a scenario. Well, there's maybe
Yep.
one where you didn't see some things, but that could be dark matter. A lot of the scenarios were on the longer side, and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about this
Yeah.
thing. This gave us
This
extra
is
cards.
here.
Hmm.
Yeah. This after the second scenario, after we our strong showing there, I mean, this permanent just means in a scenario where there's scan, which is what? After
All
scenario 2, that's 3, 4, 5,
and 8.
and 8,
Mhm.
right? Um, every turn somebody is getting a free card or resource because you're scanning all the time. There's there's no reason not to. And that's extremely helpful. And you were using this sometimes too,
Mhm.
but without something like this provided by the campaign that adds additional draw, would I have benefited from something else that would let me draw more? I guess. I had Crystal Pendulum in the deck originally as a level 0 asset, and if I actually remembered to use the damn thing more often,
Yeah.
that would have helped, but that's the curse of Crystal Pendulum, I guess. I mean, it was fine, but these proved better.
Yeah. So I mean, again, caveat from every campaign whenever we do recaps that the I think that the story assets and or the campaign mechanics themselves really do tinge like our experiences, and I think this was a
Mhm.
more friendly campaign, so it allowed us to um, collect a lot of XP, and then like yeah, something like this where we're basically getting an extra card every round. That adds up. It really does with the longer scenarios. So.
Yep.
Let me just finish off your discussion here by asking you, now that you've seen Spectral Shield, um, and this kind of nonsense,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on the card?
It's extremely powerful for level 0 if you are building around it. And the box comes with level 0 ways to build around it.
Hmm.
This, this, this. Your name doesn't need to be Akachi to have these like 2 copies of each of these cards in your deck. And for for drip feed of damage and horror to essentially not matter. That's extremely powerful. And I do also hope that at some point we get a ruling clarification on what the heck it means for a card to take damage or horror.
Yeah,
Um,
we had many questions about timing on this one and whatnot, but yeah, you're playing this in a Patrice deck as well, so it's not that you've only seen it in this Akachi
yes.
is charged up, um, and in that one, I mean, not to talk about that deck entirely, but do you see big differences in how it played out? I mean, you're playing solo also. Remember, in this case,
Yeah,
you're canceling for two people here, even.
that that is correct. Where I needed twice the charges for it. The Patrice deck, I mean, that's happening in a challenge gauntlet that's for viewers who may be interested. That is the Hunters of the Mythos Dunwich Legacy Challenge, where we're running in the Kukri Cup, where the only damage we can apply to enemies is via that Dunwich Classic, the Kukri. And more importantly, you can't play any other, aside from signature cards, any other items, allies, or I think it's accessories. No, they're all items, or spells, spell
Spell assets,
assets.
yeah.
So in that deck, like the question is, where in the world do you find your soak? And Spectral Shield being a fast, which is very important for Patrice, one cost, even if it just stops one damage or horror, that might be the one damage or horror that I need.
Right.
Now it's not the only card in the deck that works with that. The card that I'm using there to charge that up is Living Ink, um, which again, is not ideal, but it's what I have to work with because it's not an item, a spell, or an ally.
True.
Um,
And
but it's
yet,
providing charges.
and yet it works.
And
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, it's working.
I
It's
find
working.
that this is I mean, just having seen it here, I mean, only I guess in your decks, um, I'm a little concerned about the card because damage and horror is the way in which the game can actually defeat you.
Yep.
And it seems slightly too easy at level 0 even to have ways to cancel. And then I feel like the charge economy is a little bit supercharged right now. Haha. Given
Well,
Enraptured, I mean, even
yeah.
I mean, even Ghastly Possession helps there too. What's the other card I'm thinking of that's adding? Well, even just with Living Ink, where it
Nine
has its
charges.
own way of replenishing charges, right? So
Hmm.
I don't know. Like even if you do nothing else with Eyes of the Dreamer, you're paying 4 resources for these 2 cards to cancel what 10 damage,
That's what 2/3 of an investigator.
right? Granted, you have to take them the damage one at a time for that
Sure.
to be complete, but even so, that seems a little bit much. I don't know how you feel.
Uh it's it's very powerful. Is it busted powerful? I'd like to try it a couple more times. Like I mean, speaking about the scale of what is or isn't busted powerful,
Yeah.
I'm just coming off of completing, completely unrelated to this, a campaign play along where for the first time I sat down and said, I'm going to see what the solo Amanda Sharp experience is all about. That is busted powerful.
Even in
Um,
solo, right? So that's
Even in solo.
yeah.
Yes. So this is not that. Is it getting there? Possibly.
I like to see
I
it
can
in
see
a regular campaign as well because sorry, an
it.
official one, just to see what that looks like. I mean, I think a lot of the pieces were there early, and then I mean, I don't have a problem with the combo with Red Clock. That's kind of fun and interesting.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but at level 0, this sort of infinite um
Yeah.
ignore part of the game is the part that I'm like, uh, what's good for the health of the game if you can just ignore. It's almost like the power word type of fantasy or the Rod of Carnimagos, where you're just ignoring enemies
Yeah.
altogether. This is kind of a version of that, but it's even bigger because it's treacheries
Territories as well as enemies.
as well as enemies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you did it because you looked over here at poor Monterey Jack and said he's probably going to take a lot of horror. So I think it was a fun way to see if we could just mitigate that entire part of the game with you doing. I wouldn't say not much, but like it was easy for this to be online, and as you said, there were always more charges to be had. But
Yeah.
on top of that, I got this chronophobia, which was funny because I'm pretty sure we never cleared it after a certain point,
I, I I don't know if we ever cleared it full stop.
and part of
I
that
don't remember you clearing this
part of that is
ever.
this virtual access key, which is identical to the silver key in Dream Eaters, lest you think
Yep.
this is a uh, overpowered fan created story asset.
It's not. It's the silver key.
Yeah. I mean, granted, you get it very, very early, so that
Yeah.
is nice, but right. This was interesting for our discussion of timing for the Spectral Shield as well as Chronophobia, but
Hmm.
the reality was I wasn't dying. And we would just could play a little fast and loose about treacheries as well, where I just either one thing or another is going to cancel the horror. So, okay, I guess I can leave things there for Akachi and talk a little bit about this Monterey Jack deck. I didn't take in the
Yep.
thick of it. I didn't take any other XP boosting things because I knew that that was not necessary. But I will remark, as I did in a video with Justin a week or two ago now, about how most of this deck is actually level 0 cards. So Monterey Jack himself is a rogue investigator, and he's got this movement stuff we'll talk about in a second. But his deck building is level 0 rogue, and then seeker cards 1 to 5 plus 5 other seeker cards level 0. So he has a bit of an interesting deck building conundrum where the level 0 deck doesn't look like the 58 XP deck because how do you keep all of those level 0 cards in rogue when there's just like not upgraded versions of them, right? You have this ability in a mono class or so to have a level 0, say uh, Azure Flame, and then you can throw a lot of XP and it's still Azure Flame, but it's just better. You don't get that with the Edge of the Earth style investigators. They have to pivot to some extent. But I've always found that Monterey Jack likes those rogue cards. They're much better for him than the Seeker ones to some extent. So I found ways to keep a lot of rogue cards in here.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at his front side now, his ability is at the end of your turn. If you started this round one location away from your current location, gain a resource or draw a card. Do both if you go 2 locations away. And I like this ability. It's I know some people, the recent discussion on PBG's Discord, I don't know if you read it, that was it seems boring. And I'd never have understood this. I find his ability to be utterly engaging with the way that you are planning your turns.
Mm-hmm.
And the payoff is quite good. I don't know what your
Yeah,
thoughts are on that.
an extra card, or if you need it to be a resource and possibly both every turn, that's fantastic. And like we weren't playing solo, but I'm coming from it from a solo player perspective as well. Like that extra card or the capacity to potentially have an extra card every turn, like that's why Lucky Cigarette Case is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It baffles me to think that this reads as a boring ability when what it means is you are getting the stuff you need to play the game like at potentially double speed. Like this is saying if you have moved twice in your turn, you get an extra upkeep.
Yeah,
That's huge.
it's good.
That's
It is very good. And I think that's strange to say it's boring because I think most investigator abilities are, I don't know, they're not that interesting, right? Like which of them
Mhm.
say something that's like completely insane? I think like even Rex's ability, you could say is boring. All it does is get you an extra clue, but that's exactly what you're
All it
trying to
does
do, right?
win more. How
Yeah,
boring that is.
I know. Anyway, I mean, we could debate what people think boring means, but I find that this is a engaging ability just because now you're thinking about how can I get my extra value from movement, but also extra value from having moved. And to me, that is mostly in this connect the dots. Um,
Yes.
that was my choice of level 0 card to keep around in the seeker class. I tend to like cards that people dump on a lot, and this one has had its fair share of critics. But Monterey Jack is a good choice because he has that extra economy. He likes to move. We have that crafty that helps pay for it sometimes. And
Hmm.
you saw the deck. There's a lot of resources to be had
Oh, there's a lot of resources to be had.
in this one. So I found I didn't play it every scenario. Sometimes it wasn't that easy to pull off, but that's fine. It has 2 good icons that you could commit. But when it was good, it was fast 2 clues. Like that's what it does.
I feel like in half, if not more, of the scenarios, this was a last 2 rounds play to clear a victory point location in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
That's tremendous.
Yeah,
And if you can pay for it, and you need to be able to pay for it, which the rest of your deck was manifestly able to do.
right. So let's talk about the rest of the insight per se package here. So there's a lot of resource generation, and a lot of it came from building around crafty. So this can reduce the cost of insight, tool, and trick cards. So grift is a trick, but it costs 0, but it gets you a skill boost as well. So this grift plus a choice watch this got me 9 resources more than once, which seems like it's just an insane combo of 2 cards that, yeah, 2 cards, you got to get them in your hand at the same time. No, that was not a problem. That just happened naturally. And even with cost reduction, like I'll take that. Here's another trick.
Mhm.
Using it, holding it basically in my hand until I had a thieves kit or lockpicks or some other item was fine because it wasn't like I was sitting in my hands until then. But it was nice to save a play action and 3 resources. Yes, also this guy was costed 3. Um, it was it's good. I use this quite often, and I don't know how else to explain this card. It is a very strong card.
It is. It is. It's like it's uncage the item.
Yep. And But I mean, it's fast, right? It's even better.
That's true. It's more quickly uncaged. It's uncaged the item for having done the thing that you are going to be doing anyway. It's the same reason why things like burning the midnight oil is so good.
Right.
You're going to be investigating if you have that in your deck. Why not get paid to do the job you're already going to do?
Mm-hmm. Okay. These last two insights here are level 5, no stone unturned. They cost 2, but I don't think I ever paid 2. I may have done it once. I think I've always paid the crafty bucks for this one.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
remember that you asked maybe several times, like, why are there no resources on your crafty? Like, well, I played this.
Started with that. Yep.
Yeah. So I used it on me a few times. I think I used it on you maybe even more.
And I think twice because these came in
They were one of them was there
later.
from fairly early. The other one came in
Yeah.
later. But it's nice just to have another way of getting through the deck for fast. I don't think. I mean, these are tough cards. I think for at level 5, but when there's tons of XP to be had, I think it's quite good.
Mhm. Yep.
Now,
Yep.
the other card that card that I kind of avoided for a while, and then you just said you should put it in the deck.
Yeah.
Cryptic Research. It's just better. I had a scenario where I was like, man, this would have been way easier to get through my deck if I had Cryptic Research. I put it in, and lo and behold, the next scenario, I was off to the races. So
Yes.
I kind of wanted to avoid it just to see if I could run with the native card draw of Monterey Jack and the no stone, but this was just really good.
I mean, you did for most of the campaign. Like that effect we had that discussion after scenario 7
Hmm.
and you put it in for the finale.
Yeah,
So,
it's true. I did feel so while this deck was very very good. I did feel somewhere in the middle that I was like, well, I feel like I could be doing more, and maybe just things didn't line up quite right, or we were just doing well anyway. That the scenario ended before I could get everything online, but I felt like I
mhm,
was stalling out a bit um, until we reached the finale, and this card may have helped quite a bit. Um,
sure.
and then I was really, really, dare I say, overpowered. But there were a few scenarios earlier where I was not. It wasn't just firing on all cylinders, and I think this may have been a missing piece that if I'd had early, probably could have gotten there better.
That's fair.
Sure. So back to the insights and tools and tricks. The thieves kits, of course, are a card that I kind of wish that Monterey Jack had access to from the get go because um, it actually makes a lot of sense for him to use his good number and get
Mhm,
resources for getting clues. I think even though Scarlet Keys came out right after Edge of the Earth, people played Monterey Jack without this and never returned to him for whatever reason and have missed this particular power that he has.
mhm,
It's 6 resources. You're getting 3 back essentially if you talk about the cost. But of course, I was not paying for the thieves kits that often entirely.
mhm.
Very good. And then the lockpicks level 0, which this is the thing that people have said. I don't like this card because you draw something that makes you discard it right away. It happened one time the entire campaign
One time on a -5
on a -5.
helps to be testing at a native 9, which Monterey Jack does.
Mm-hmm. He's not the only one though. Lucius can do this as well, and doesn't
Yes.
take too much for the 4/4 investigators like Finn to get there. But a native 9 does mean that you beat basically everything. But I had a little bit of help with this too. I don't know if I actually ever used it. Maybe once. I was thinking that the steady handed would basically protect an extra token, and I believe on the round in question I'd already used
Yeah.
this, and I
Yeah.
wasn't able to use it on
You
the
pass by
lockpicks.
1.
Hmm. But at that point in that scenario, it didn't really matter. It was fine, but it was just it ruined my perfect record. But yeah, for any of you who say this is a I don't know garbage asset or something, and you need to take in the thick of it to get a level 1 version for those that can take the level 1 version, absolutely not. You can run with this for quite some time. I think this deck was proof of it.
Mhm. Fully agreed. Fully agreed.
Okay. So the other little mini game I had going on here was the science stuff that you already saw, the steady handed. Uh, Good. This was another way for me to heal horror, but not super necessary. it was there for other things. It was there for these guys, my other level 0 secret cards, Alton O'Connell.
Mhm.
The +1 agility, obviously very good for everything we've talked about so far. And I did not do the so-called cheese of using flashlight. I just wanted to see with the whole campaign how many times could I succeed by three, exactly three, and use his ability to discover clues at mostly lower shroud locations. So like, how often am I just accumulating enough evidence on Alton? I think it was perfectly fine for level 1 or for level 0 card. I think we did it often.
Yes. Especially useful here where, like, you don't have any other, well, aside from the Antikythera, which we'll
Mm-hmm.
get to, right? But there's no other, like, get more than one clue in a single investigate.
No, there's the connected dots. I had deduction sometimes, and it entered the deck, it left the deck, it
Yep.
came back I think at one point, but that was it. So this was my way of getting an extra clue every now and then.
Yep. Which worked fine. Yeah, I've played Alton a couple times on my real life table,
Hmm.
and yeah, as long as you have something that is letting you testing high enough to have a reasonable shot at getting this 3 up, which, lockpicks will do it. Um,
Though sometimes that was
that
getting me
that
too high, right?
well, yeah, that's true. The curse of getting felt like a survivor where you're getting a +1 and you're like, "Well, okay, I've just passed by 6. Great. What can I do with that?" Um,
Yeah,
but no, he provided value all the way through. I couldn't think of another ally that would have, certainly not at level 0, that would have fit better what you're trying to do. And the passive agility boost, like, you were relying that on that for all kinds of things,
yeah, I'm
not just for
using
your
it
thieves kit, but
right. The
for
griff,
evading.
evading,
Yep.
the bullwhip. In fact, actually used a little bit. Um, so yeah, right. One question is like, is it just Dr. Milan, who costs a little bit more, gives you a book boost instead, and gives you resources, which I could have funneled into, what I was doing anyway? I think that's a reasonable thing to do. This is just a slightly different thing to do if you're going to be doing more evasion anyway.
Yep. 100%.
And it's two um, damage soak, which Monterey doesn't need per se. So there's reasons maybe to go for Dr. Milan instead, but nice to use a different card sometimes and see what that's like. I think it made more sense with the steady-handed Antikythera business. So okay, let's talk about that one. So the Antikythera. I just have one copy. I thought that it was worth just one copy when I could put in No Stone Unturned, which was basically another copy.
Mhm.
So there was really no need to take another one. But I think this card is very, very interesting. It does a lot once it gets into play. I don't think we saw its full power here for whatever reason. I might just be
Mhm.
misremembering, but I feel like it did a reasonable amount of work, but not an incredible amount of work, which I've seen it do before. And that just might be because I wasn't putting into play early enough, maybe where I succeeded by too much. I don't know. But the last scenario where I did get the fine tuning on it, that's where it started to
Mhm.
be doing a lot. And
Yes.
it's good. It gives you a clue, gives you a card and a resource, and you can do that every turn. And now you're just getting 3 upkeeps with Monterey Jack potentially. I think that last
Yep.
scenario played into his game just better than most because of the unique ways that the spaceships work. So I was getting a bit extra from what I might have
Yeah.
usually been getting. But even so, this is a very, very good card. I still don't feel like it's crazy busted. I just think that it does a lot of work that you need to build around to some extent. Like I think without steady-handed, it's good, but you don't always get the thing you want. And
Mhm.
without fine-tuning, it's it's still very, very good. You're just not getting double the the ability. Of course, you need to take more skill tests for this to work well. And I think this deck, well, any rogue seeker combination, I think allows you to take more skill tests per turn in ways that are really nice. So you can take agility tests during the mythos phase and pass them. You can do an evasion, pass them, get some cards or clues, and then do your investigates. So good home for it here.
Yep.
What do you think of it? Had you seen this card in action before in a campaign?
Um, in on my table, um, it got put in very late, um, in actually a Monterey Jack deck,
Oh,
that
okay.
looked different from this, but, it got put in very late, and it was extremely good. Um, I think you were getting a lot of value, like quiet value out of this, even
Yes.
before the last scenario. Like it wasn't flashy, but I'm pretty sure with all the tests you were taking, and you were taking quite a few tests, generally each turn because you were primary cluver, and you
Hmm.
know, we much of the clue getting was within it, a straight one clue per turn per action investigate,
Hmm.
but then boosted by this. And sometimes there's the extra clue, sometimes there's the extra action. The card and the resource is not flashy, but it did great. It became flashy when fine tuning was on it, and you could use it twice a turn. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, you went up to a second copy of
It
this
did, yeah.
for the last scenario, which was, I think that was the key extra piece to get these two things together. Um, I mean, sure, having two copies of a limit one per
Well, one could
card
go
has
on
has its
the steady-handed,
effects.
right? I don't know if I did that. I can't remember, but that was the other thing you could
That's
do.
true. That's true. That's true. Um, but yeah, this was extremely good. The question in my mind, and this I really haven't seen yet.
Hmm.
This obviously came out in Drowned City. The other high level seeker asset that came out in Drowned City is the research one, the Dial of Ancients.
Hmm.
I have not seen Dial of Ancients played yet.
I
Any of
have.
its various versions. Okay. How's it stack up compared to this?
I think it's just a very different card. I've only seen the one
Okay.
that seals a token,
Mm,
and
okay.
you could seal a -4 or -5 for a little while until someone draws an auto fail, and then that's there. And then the ability is just very different, right? It's then you can take tests knowing that you're always going to pass in some fashion. This
Mm,
deck really wants to pass tests, but by a certain amount, so it doesn't really care about the auto fail as much.
yep.
Um, it's good. I think it's better team support than what this does, which is
Sure.
good for just the investigator who has it. Of course, that helps the whole team too when someone does well.
Sure. Sure.
But
Mm,
for value, I
I
think
think
5
it'll work
XP,
great.
this is quite good, right?
Yep. 100%.
Okay. Last thing is I had a whole set of skills. Skills are, of course, good when you can draw, and even better when they have a relevant ability on them. So manual dexterities I had just because I'm using that stat and it draws a card. I really wish I could upgrade it to level 2, but I could upgrade the perceptions to level 2. And occasionally I was using this on the Thieves kit because I could, but also this is to help solve my weakness, which has to be a intellect test. So that was nice. Um,
Yes.
the watch this, as I mentioned before, very, very good for burst economy. And the quick thinkings also on those glyphs are very, very strong. Extra actions, that was something that I was hoping to get in this deck from various sources. I'll show one more in a second.
Hmm.
And then the calculated risks were a nice payoff for taking many actions. And I believe I had a pretty good commit on this for maybe 5 at one point, maybe
Um,
even 6. I don't remember
I
now.
at least 4 every time you used it.
Hmm.
4 or above every time you used it, which that's great.
Yep. I think this card I put in especially for anything that was tested at the end of your turn, but you don't have to do it that way. You can use it on your last action, and that's also good.
Mhm.
The Eye of Truth I saw once, and I was forced to commit it, so I have no more comments about this one. And it was not on
It
a
was a
treachery, sadly.
source of XP sync. I think it was on a treachery, but then we ended the scenario that turn.
Oh, okay, I may have done that at the end too. Anyway, now why all of these cards? One thing is the ancestral knowledge, which I, as you can see here, put a lot of XP into permanence just to keep all of my cards as they were here because I couldn't really get rid of that many level 0 cards without affecting the deck a lot. So 6 and
Hmm.
2 ancestral knowledge, which gives me 5 more cards, which I think is nice to refill your level 0 stuff too. And that was just, it's just value, right?
Hmm.
2 copies of Studious, which is kind of like the same kind of value. You get extra cards in your
Yep.
opening hand. And in fact, in one scenario, I had what, another 2,
Yep. You
maybe
could have
3.
had 10.
Yeah, I could have had more. Yeah. The Observed, of course, was the source of a potential more cards in hand at the beginning of the scenario.
Hmm.
I just take this card all the time now because why not? The value I get from it is probably better than the marginal upgrades that some of the cards have in the regular deck, and it's fun to spin the wheel a bit.
It is fun. Yep.
Relic Hunter was to have both the Antikythera and the virtual access key in play.
Yep.
At one point, there was a lucky Sig case here, but eventually I realized that this was just very good to ignore my
Hmm.
weakness. And then finally, and I don't think I use it too much. I was trying to avoid the 3 XP into higher ed, which can also just solve the willpower problem for Monterey Jack. But I used it at the end. I just wanted to avoid having to put it in early and say, "Oh, look how good this investigator is," taking a card that is somehow not on the taboo list.
Yeah, it came up a couple times. And there were even a couple moments when you went to go spend it and you only had 4 cards in hand,
Yeah, I kind of
which,
forgot, right?
that can happen.
It can happen. Okay, that is pretty much the deck. I do want to also highlight I had a few other ways to funnel my money into things like Well Connected, which I just had 1 copy, but it when it came out, especially early,
Hmm.
it started to accumulate a lot of value, like getting plus, um, I don't know, 4 or 5 on skill tests, which was very nice to have,
Yep.
and the swift reflexes as well, which I don't think I used as much on your turn as I was hoping for, but it was just another way to extend my turn, and that seemed fine, especially with the card draw and resource generation in the deck.
100%.
Pathfinder's here too. I don't need to say anything about this card. It's good. You could have 2 of them in the deck if you wanted, but I just didn't. Hiking boots also would have been another addition that could have been fine.
Hmm.
So yeah, I feel a little funny about this deck because it was clearly very good. And when I zoom back and look and think about the campaign, this may be one of the more overpowered decks that I've played, just in terms of I stop feeling like the game can hurt me, and part of that is Akachi. Um, but also
Doing my job.
like when an enemy shows up, I was not wondering how do we deal with this problem, right? Because I
Yeah.
actually even used this bullwhip more than I was anticipating, simply
Oh, did
because
great.
I could, right?
Yeah.
A one
It
damage
was
fast.
your, yeah, evading an enemy on that was attached to me.
Hmm.
That happened a couple of times. Um, it's again, like I had Eyes the Dreamer. I could occasionally investigate when it was important. You
Hmm.
could occasionally, with this, fight something, and you did. It's
But I actually found that it was more, instead of like I needed to, it was more of a I would like to commit things like manual dexterity or watch this, and here is a
sure.
test that I could do that wasn't just an evasion, because that would be using the same number. This gives me some extra damage or could fight something on you. It felt like this is a, I don't want to say a missing piece, but when people think about Monterey Jack as an investigator, this does actually contribute to the game in ways that you can't just natively do.
Yes.
So quite good. But yeah, at a certain point, and again, this is one of the easier campaigns, it felt like I was just kind of, I was playing the game, and it was fun to play the game. Very fun to play this sort of deck. But there wasn't a whole lot of source of tension in terms of there's something bad that could show up. Even in the willpower tests, we don't have that big of a um, downside to them. They weren't threatening to
Hmm.
discard my whole hand or something. There's some fragility in Monterey Jack. I played this deck before, with Crypt Chill, you may recall. I've done it in a standalone as well, where there's like willpower four test, and for each point you fail by, take a horror or something awful happens, and
Yeah.
it can crumble if you don't have all the pieces set up. But with your help, and I think the treacheries were a bit tamer than they had any right to be in the last few scenarios. It was just kind of cruising, and occasionally I thought, well, I feel like I should be able to do everything. And when I played the parallel Monterey Jack deck with Pax in Return to Forgotten Age, I think
Hmm.
on the strength of the rogue card pool that he gets access to and the upgraded bullwhip, I really did feel
Yeah.
like I was doing way more than I had any right to be. And this was not quite that egregious. So it was still very fun. And I like this whole science archetype with him too.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's all I need to say about this deck. It's good. It's a good template, I think, if you want to play a deck that does take advantage of moving around and of having enemies and using agility and a nice broad section of the card pool. So, let's just finish off by some discussions of Dark Matter. This was your first time playing. It was my third or fourth. I think it may have been my third time playing. And you got to experience things for the first time. But I will say that unlike the other two times that I played, we did a full and complete clear and total domination. The second time I played, I think we got pretty close. Um,
Hmm.
it didn't quite work out in the way that we did it at the end, but we were doing very well as well. But this one was, maybe surprisingly, considering you hadn't played it before, we unlocked everything, got all the goodies, and did the secret ending, as it were.
It was a great time. And I think played to my, I don't know if I want to say strengths, but certainly interests just as a player,
Hmm.
being puzzly, um, that sort of thing I immediately take to. And yeah, it led to some of the I think so one of the longest videos of your channel, which is partly thinking through this nonsense setup and you know taking the lead on strategy, which I appreciate your and allowing me to do and make my own mistakes, but make my way through to the resolution. I enjoyed the campaign a lot. I understand why folks refer to it as on the easier side. I am interested to revisit it on hard
Yeah,
at some point.
me too.
Um, I'm interested to revisit it. I mentioned this in one of the videos in higher count multiplayer so that the hidden card shenanigans can be even more shenanigany. Um, because I really like the design of those, and I think that's a blast. Um, my wife, who has heard some of our sessions, is very interested for me to print this out and get it on our table. So I know that's going to happen at some point.
Hmm.
Um, what else? I think the scenario where we had the most difficulty was the Among Us scenario. Um, the where you have the choice of three, the one we did third,
Right.
which I do think speaks well to the scaling mechanic that's in play to make of those three, whichever one you do first is going to be easiest, and whichever you do last is going to be hardest. I was looking at some of the other ways that the other scenarios balance that, and like I we did the Migo one first of the three, and by the time the Biakis showed up, we were done
We were
and we
done. Yep.
left. And I can see, looking at how it's set up, that if we did that one third, like the Biakis would have shown up like maybe midway through what we would have been doing, if that. And then we would have had to have been fending them off. And Quantum Moon, like just from looking at resolution text, that looks like it's got a whole different version of it almost if you get there quote unquote too late because of your impending doom. So I like that replay aspect. I think the campaign really did well of scaling that sort of choose your own adventure, remaining reasonable,
Hmm.
um, but providing a fun replayability. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really like the design of the scenarios. They're very interesting and fun.
Hmm.
They feel fresh, I think. There was the scan mechanic, of course, is kind of a version of Explore, but not exactly. And iterates on that idea a few different ways. Um,
Hmm.
I think that they're blast to play. I thought they were all very fun scenarios of Arkham, less stressful than other campaigns. You go back to playing Dunwich, or you go back to playing. Uh, what are you doing right now? You're also doing. Well, you finished Dream Eaters. I think that one's a little friendlier as well. But
Yes.
those
I,
camp.
I'm
Yeah, go ahead.
Mhm. No, I'm finishing up my like it's 2018 runs of Return to the Night of the Zealot.
Ah, right.
And that's like the return version of that. That is a decent challenge. Yeah, I do think that this is friendlier than those, at least on standard. Again, I'd
Hmm.
like to try it on hard. We successfully avoided some of the worst punches, I think. Like
The
we were
tablet
very
tokens.
diligent about not hitting.
Hmm.
Yes, 100%. Um, so could things have gone more sideways? I can certainly see how they could have, and then more of a challenge to find our footing as opposed to the full clear run that we found ourselves on the path of.
Because even
Um,
in, I think it was the curtain call rerun, right, where the tokens actually were scary. It made us play a little bit differently. I think that there was
sure.
balance to that in the form of the encounter deck and the length of the scenario anyway. But that's the one we were
Yes.
saying, skulls are -6 or something. We have to think about our resources in different ways in that we weren't doing before.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of a pitch for, of course, playing on hard anyway. But uh, even just the failure on tokens, I think, was more mild. I mean, you've got stuff in Dunwich that's Elder Thing token -3 if you fail, discard an asset, right? Which
Yeah.
is kind of like here's script chill in every test you take. Uh, um, right, so that just not here, and there was a lot of friendly other ways to circumvent things like using your memories to reduce difficulty as tests or canceling horror. There's just a lot of, again, player friendly mechanics, which is fine. Like it, again, it allows us to do some of the things that we were able to do here. But I like the campaign. I think it is great in terms of the story. The text is very good. The writing, I think, is very good and interesting, intriguing when you play and you're really wondering like, hey, what's going on here? What is the underlying mystery? And just rolling up to some of those scenarios, especially in the middle, the 3 through 5, I
Yes.
believe it is, feels like a an adventure. It's like what's going on this planet? Let's see and help out this particular problem, and that's a testament to the design work, I think.
100. Right.
Okay, well, any last thoughts, or shall we call it for this campaign?
Um, like I said, I'm looking forward to revisiting it at some point. But I think we can call it for this one. I have had an absolute blast. Thank you again for having me on and adding me to the rotating list
Hmm.
of folks that you have played campaigns with. I've enjoyed it very much, and I look forward to the next adventure, whenever and whatever it is.
All right, and for those of you still watching, go check out Volt's channel if you like sort of the. You do a good job of the longer, detailed explanations of what your turns are like than some of us lightning fast players do these days. But it's a good listen. So go check it out. And of course, the link has always been in the description and in the final little things that pop up at the end of the video. All right, thanks for being here, of course, and thanks for having a good time because it's always enjoyable to play with another person. As much as I like solo, having two people collaborate is a lot of fun. Until next
It
time,
is indeed.
we'll
Thank you
see you.
again.